For decades, it's been the talk of the neighbourhood, and Hugh remembers almost every word. The tales of the Easy Street murders. What happened in the house down the road from him has remained a mystery for 47 long years. And it looked like staying that way until a prime suspect took an unexpected trip.
Easy Street, Collingwood, a stone's throw from Melbourne's CBD. It's the summer of 1977 and two young female friends have been found slain inside their rental home. Nobody knew it then, but this double murder would become one of the country's most notorious cold cases until an extraordinary breakthrough nearly half a century later.
I was astonished. That was a huge news, and and to think that it would perhaps come down to DNA if the case is proven and everything, then that's just a wonderful effort by the police to persevere like this. Because I think no one thought it would be solved after this time.
If only the walls of 147 Easy Street could talk.
The girls were stabbed a total of 83 times between them.
I would say that it's one of the worst crimes I've encountered.
Housemates Suzanne Armstrong and Susan Bartlett stabbed to death and found days later, along with Armstrong's 16-month-old son Gregory, dehydrated in his cot.
We've lived here for 37 years, 1987, so we moved in 10 years after the murder.
Retired history teacher Hugh Parry-Jones lives a few doors down from where Suzanne and Susan were killed.
When we moved in, I met Mrs. Coventry, who lived on the laneway, which shares the laneway with the murder house, and she told me this tale of how it was a very hot night and she was sitting out the back of her house in the kitchen. She told me how she saw a bloke in there, and at some later point he was washing his hands vigorously at the sink.
Oddly enough, the person has then cleaned himself up in the bathroom and then let himself out the back door through the back laneway. He would have been covered in blood completely.
A few days after the murders, a young local policeman, a uniformed copper in Collingwood, pulls up a young local yobbo that he knows.
Herald Sun crime writer Andrew Rule.
The young copper is Ron Iddles, who later achieved some notoriety or fame as a homicide squad detective.
Ron Iddles' former colleague, ex-detective Charlie Bazina.
He then searches the car and finds a bloodstained knife in a sheath in the boot. He then says he then hands it over to the local or to the detectives to follow through.
There was no DNA, as we know. So how could they link it to the crime? They didn't have the tools that we use today to solve such crimes.
The case goes cold.
I would have been taken straight to the pathologist who did the post-mortems and say, they are the dimensions, could this knife have inflicted those wounds? And that would further enhance your evidence against this person, and got gone back to him and said, okay, this matches. I don't know if the blood matches any of the victims, but the circumstances are building up.
In 2017, a $1 million reward's offered by police.
We've got 130 persons of interest, and there's only one on that list who's got anything to fear from us in this investigation.
One of those persons of interest is the boy with the knife, Perry Corumblice, who by 2017 was aged 57. He reportedly agrees to give a DNA sample but then leaves Australia to live at his parents' home in Athens. So DNA is taken from a relative of Perry's and police say it's a hit. But Perry can't be extradited because under Greek law, prosecutions must begin within a certain time of the alleged crime.
It still confuses me. Well, how is it they didn't take the DNA sample on the spot?
For 7 long years, police play a waiting game, putting Perry's passport on a watch list. Finally, last Thursday, Perry travels to Rome.
The red alert from Interpol alerts the Victorian authorities he's arrested. Once the authorities in Italy say, yep, we'll be approving extradition, 2 detectives will fly over there, give additional evidence, and then custody will be handed over at the airport to the Victorian detectives.
At the time, 17-year-old Perry lived with his family a few streets away. Now he could be returning back to Victoria to face a criminal trial.
They got a person who is at this point only a suspect. This case may not be solved. There's all sorts of things, you know, we don't know. DNA is not enough by itself to get a conviction in Australia for very good reasons.
For a while there, everyone would mention, oh, you're on Easy Street, gee, the murders, you know, where's the murder house, etc., etc. I myself, growing up out in the eastern suburbs, I had only just turned 18, and the thought that you know, someone contemporaneous with me could have done something like that is very shocking.
And late today we learnt Perry Corumblice has agreed to be extradited to Melbourne, but he's told Italian investigators he wasn't involved in the murders.